There's a number floating around Australian financial circles that has quietly terrified an entire generation of workers. $1 million. That's what you need in super to retire comfortably. Or so the story goes. Financial advisors say it, newspaper headlines repeat it, and millions of Australians have internalised it as gospel, concluded they'll never get there, and quietly given up on the idea that retirement could actually be good. Here's the thing, that number is wrong. Not just a little wrong, completely wrong for most Australians. And today I'm going to show you exactly how much super you actually need, because the real figure is probably more achievable than you've been led to believe, and the strategy behind it is something every Australian should understand before they hit 60. Let's start with the only number that actually matters. How much does a comfortable retirement actually cost in Australia? The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia, ASFA, publishes a retirement standard every quarter. It's the most credible benchmark we have, and the 2026 figures put a comfortable retirement for a single person at around $54,800 a year, and for a couple at around $77,000. That's not luxury, that's private health insurance, a reliable car, eating out regularly, a domestic holiday once a year, and covering your bills without stress. A modest lifestyle, which is basically covering essentials with a little leftover, comes in at around $35,000 for singles and $50,000 for couples. Those are the targets. Everything else is just working backwards from there. Now here's where the $1 million myth starts to fall apart. When most people picture retirement, they imagine a pot of money that has to last forever, as if you'll live to 150 and can never touch the principal. That's not how superannuation works. Super is designed to be drawn down. You're supposed to spend it. The system was built on the assumption that you'll use your super balance over the course of your retirement, not preserve it intact for your kids. ASFA's own modelling reflects this. Their comfortable lifestyle figures are based on a retiree drawing down their super balance over their expected lifetime while also receiving the age pension as a supplement. And when you factor the age pension into the equation, the super balance you actually need drops substantially. Here's how the numbers work. The full age pension for a single person currently pays around $31,200 a year. For a couple, it's around $47,000 a year combined. That income is indexed to inflation and continues for life. It's one of the most secure income streams in the country. And for anyone with superannuation assets below the pension assets test thresholds, you receive some or all of it on top of whatever your super pays you. So if a comfortable single retirement costs $54,800 a year and the age pension is already covering $31,200 of that, your super only needs to generate the remaining $23,600 a year. At a 4% drawdown rate, which is the globally accepted benchmark for sustainable retirement withdrawals, $23,600 a year requires a super balance of around $590,000, not $1 million. Not even close. For a couple targeting $77,000 a year, with the age pension covering $47,000 of that, the super gap is $30,000 a year. At 4%, that's a combined super balance of around $750,000. Split between two people, that's $375,000 each. Those are very different numbers to what you've probably been told. And they're grounded in ASFA's own research, not financial planning marketing. Now here's where it gets more nuanced because retirement isn't one size fits all, and the super balance you need depends heavily on three things. When you retire, how long you live, and whether you own your home. Let's take each one. Age matters enormously. If you retire at 60, you could easily have a 30-year retirement ahead of you. Your super needs to stretch further, which means either a larger balance, a lower withdrawal rate, or a willingness to draw down more aggressively in your later years when spending typically drops. ASFA's modelling assumes retirement at 67, which is the current age pension eligibility age. Retire earlier and the maths shifts. A 60-year-old with $590,000 in super who draws down at 4% will likely run out of super in their late 70s or early 80s, just as the age pension becomes their primary income. That might be fine depending on your circumstances, but you need to model it deliberately rather than stumble into it. Longevity is the wild card nobody wants to talk about. The average Australian woman retiring today at 65 has a life expectancy of around 88. Men live to around 85 on average, but averages are misleading. Half the population lives longer than average. If you make it to 70 in good health, your odds of reaching 90 are higher than most people expect. Planning for 25 years of retirement when you might need 30 is a real risk, and it's one that a higher super balance or a more conservative drawdown rate can hedge against. Home ownership might be the single biggest variable in this entire conversation. The ASFA comfortable retirement figures assume you own your home outright. If you do, your housing costs in retirement drop to rates, insurance, and maintenance. If you're renting, you need significantly more income and therefore significantly more super to cover the same lifestyle. A renting retiree in Sydney or Melbourne needs somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 a year, more than a homeowner just to cover housing. That's an extra $375,000 to $625,000 in super required just to bridge that gap. Home ownership is not just a lifestyle choice. For Australian retirees, it is a foundational financial asset. Now let's talk about what most people's super actually looks like, because there's a serious gap between the numbers I've just described and where the average Australian sits. The median super balance for Australians approaching retirement, so those in their late 50s and early 60s, is around $200,000 for women and $320,000 for men. The average is higher, pulled up by people with very large balances, but median is what most people are actually sitting at. That means the typical Australian approaching retirement has significantly less super than even the lower end of what's needed for a comfortable retirement. And yet millions of Australians do retire, and millions of them manage to live reasonably well. How? 3 reasons. The age pension does more heavy lifting than most people plan for. Spending naturally decreases in later retirement, and people adapt. But there's a better answer than just adapting, and that's understanding the levers you can still pull. If you're in your 40s or 50s and your super balance isn't where it needs to be, the most powerful tool available to you is concessional contributions. These are contributions made from your pre-tax income, either through salary sacrifice or as personal deductible contributions. And they're taxed at just 15% inside super compared to your marginal tax rate outside it. For anyone earning above $45,000 a year, salary sacrificing into super is an automatic guaranteed return in the form of tax savings. The current concessional cap is $30,000 a year, including your employer's compulsory contributions. If you're behind and you haven't used your full concessional cap in previous years, the carry-forward rules allow you to contribute catch-up amounts using unused caps from the past 5 years, provided your total super balance is below $500,000. This is one of the most underused strategies in Australian retirement planning, and it can move the needle significantly for people who start late. The other lever is timing. Every year you delay retirement and keep contributing is a year of compounding. You're adding to the end of your accumulation phase. An extra 2 or 3 years of work at peak earnings, combined with maximum concessional contributions, can add $100,000 or more to your balance depending on your income. Sometimes the most valuable retirement strategy isn't picking better investments, it's working slightly longer. There's also the question of investment strategy inside super. Most Australians sit in their fund's default balanced option without ever making an active choice. For anyone with more than a decade until retirement, a higher growth allocation, meaning more shares and less cash and bonds, has historically delivered significantly better returns over long periods. The difference between a balanced option returning 6% and a growth option returning 7.5% over 20 years on a $200,000 balance is roughly $160,000 in additional retirement savings. That's not a small number. Check what option your super is in and make sure it matches your timeline. And before we land this, let's talk about one more thing that changes the equation entirely for a growing number of Australians. Having investments outside super. Superannuation is extraordinary for tax efficiency, but you can't touch it until preservation age. If you want to retire at 55 or 58, you need assets outside super to bridge the gap. a portfolio of ASX dividend ETFs generating income, a rental property, a business sale, whatever it might be. The Australians who retire early and retire well almost always have two buckets. Their super building in the background on autopilot and an outside super portfolio generating income they can access before 60. So let's bring it all together. How much super do you actually need to retire comfortably in Australia? If you're a homeowner and you're eligible for the full age pension, around $500,000 to $600,000 for a single person and $700,000 to $800,000 combined for a couple will deliver a comfortable retirement by ASFA's standard. If you're renting, add $300,000 to $500,000 to those figures. If you want to retire before 67 without touching super, you need a separate pool of assets to live off in the meantime. And if you want genuine financial comfort with a meaningful buffer for healthcare, travel and the unexpected, target $800,000 as a single and $1.2 million combined as a couple. Those numbers are achievable. Not easy, but achievable. Especially if you use every tool the system gives you: salary sacrifice, carry forward contributions, growth investment options, and the age pension as the foundational income layer it was designed to be. The Australians who retire well aren't always the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who understood the system well enough to use it properly. If this gave you a clearer picture, hit the like button and subscribe. Next video, I'm going to walk through exactly how to structure your super drawdown strategy so your money lasts as long as you do. See you there.